Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show.
Hello, welcome in Guerrilla Sports Off Ice. JJ Derez, Meghan Angley, Jesse Montano here to update you on everything. There's an preseason game last night, a little practice today, a very eventful practice today.
3-hour practice today.
They didn't tell anybody that they were doing photo shoots beforehand, right? I heard there was a fog machine. They had the setup, the lights, the cameras, the action. The action
especially. John Mitchell was out there cosplaying as a Avs rookie.
So they could Photoshop his head or what?
I don't know. But I walked in and it was foggy as hell. And I was like, this is weird. It's not that humid out. Because, it's not that uncommon to see fog in an arena or in a practice rink. Well, that's kind of weird. And I took a few more steps and the lights were off. And I was like, oh, shit. Did the power go out again? And then I saw strobe lights and they had mountains out there and flashing LEDs and all this stuff. And so it was just photos. No power outage. No fog.
I thought it was some weird power outage as well.
Well, and I was like, I wonder how these breakers are set up because only one rink is out. The other one's still fine. But yeah, it delayed the start of practice by about 30, 40 minutes. Practice got going and it was eventful. It was, no doubt.
I just saw the cover photo for this show. It doesn't fit the vibe.
Uh-oh. Right. We had to pivot with all
we're all goofy and smiling. Which I apologize.
I think the topic on everybody's mind right now is Eric Branstrom and if he's okay. And I guess can you walk us through what actually happened?
Yeah. So they were running 5-on-5 drills. Eric Branstrom went down in a really scary way after a collision with Miles Wood. And was not only slow to get up, but he in fact he got up or tried to get up and fell right back down. So it was kind of scary.
Like he was loopy type, fell right back down.
Well, like he had some noodle legs going, like went to stand up and his legs just kind of gave out from under him. Were you going to say something?
He was slow to get up too. So he stayed down for a while.
Right. I guess there's two ways you can do it, right? You go down and you're like, oh, I can't get up. I go back down on my own accord. Mm-hmm. Or it's something head related and you fall down.
Right. Because what was the thing that was scary about when he tried to stand up was there was 5-6 players standing around him and they all kind of gave him some room. And as soon as he started trying to stand up, you saw them all like reach in to catch him.
Yes.
Like it looked like he was falling. Like it did not look like he was like you said, like, oh man, I need to sit back down. It looked like it was like not up to him. But so essentially him and Miles Wood were racing for a loose puck. And like we asked Jared Bednar about it after. There was a directive to ramp up intensity at practice today. That they wanted to start seeing more game-like intensity. And, the message was kind of like, hey, we've got less than a week here to get ready for the regular season. And the message I feel like was pretty consistent that like they haven't been good enough. And so they were battling and they were skating full speed. They were tangled up and right as Miles Wood went to push off of Branstrom, you saw it. One foot came off the ice. He didn't have his balance. He didn't have his edges. And Miles Wood, they were battling and he kind of shoved him off. Branstrom went into the wall with, no brakes. All gas, no brakes, right into the wall.
As Miles Wood does.
Right. And, slow to get up. Needed some help getting up and starting to skate. He eventually went off the ice on his own, sat on the bench for a few minutes, and then left practice. Jared Bednar did tell us after that he was doing better, that he was actually riding the bike after.
Which I don't think is something you do if you're diagnosed with a concussion,
Mm-hmm.
right? They want you to lay low and not really do any physical activity. So that's a positive sign.
Yep.
He passed any preliminary checks that they did to warrant getting on the bike, which is good.
And then I was told that it was overheard someone saying that it was his shoulder more than his head. But again, like we all saw the Bambi legs. Like it was scary. It was a legitimately scary moment at practice. Like it was a loud collision with the wall. He fell back down. So I'm glad it sounds like he's all right. And it definitely sounds like he avoided what could have been really bad.
And his trajectory after he got up was positive. He went to the bench and sat and talked with the trainer there for a little bit more, ultimately decided to leave all on his own accord. So I think that the initial shock of the contact or collision maybe was causing him to be a little bit slow.
Yeah. Well, I was just there was a comment up here that says, what was the scuffle after?
That's what I was going to get to.
I think Evan tweeted that there was a scuffle after, and there was. Calvin DeHaan took exception to it, did not like that collision. He kind of came over, got in Miles Wood's face a little bit, some pushing and shoving. A hand or two got up into people's faces. A couple other guys came in and, pushed and shoved to break it up. It dispersed, what, Meghan, about 5 seconds?
Yeah.
Maybe less. And then everyone who was involved in the scuffle was standing there. It wasn't like they had to be separated or ripped away. But it was definitely guys didn't like that a collision like that happened.
I don't think Miles would like that the collision happened.
I don't either.
He looked distraught afterwards.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's spot on. His play, I thought, even seemed a little scattered.
Specifically his play.
Yep.
In that final drill where they're trying to, I don't know how to describe this. It's like it
was like a
battle.
It was like a 2-on-1 battle drill that then turned into a 2-on-2 battle drill.
But it was pretty intense, and he was playing it cautiously. He was a little bit more withdrawn than you would ordinarily see him in that drill.
And missing passes, and just you could tell he was frustrated. And he left the ice as soon as Jerry Bednar said, "You guys are on your own." He left the ice and then came back. I watched him go all the way to the locker room before coming back. My guess is he went to check on Eric Branstrom.
For sure, 100%.
So yeah, he seemed shaken by it for sure.
Well, I think that's perfect because I wanted to get into Miles Wood a little bit today. So this leads us into a nice conversation about him. I think there's a couple things that have really stood out in the last few days about Miles Wood that I think requires a discussion about him, right? I think starting with Jared Bednar kind of playing him in back-to-back preseason games, saying he's trying to get him to wake up a little this camp. We've heard all camp long from Jared Bednar. There's a few guys, and he's probably just being nice here by saying a few guys. There's a few guys that aren't really ramping it up the way they need to at this point in the season, or getting there. There's a few guys not looking as sharp as they should, and a couple was off air when I asked you from practice, right? That is he singling out that whole, we'll call him the putts in 20s line, because that's what Ross Colton deemed him. He seemed to have been calling out that line for a little bit, but then you hear good things about Logan O'Connor. At yesterday's morning skate, he talked about how much he liked Ross Colton. It's really feeling like Jared Bednar is pointing the finger at Miles Wood without pointing the finger at Miles Wood directly. We're just kind of reading between all the lines. So he gets in the game, gets in his second game preseason. Jared Bednar kind of calling him out the
Mark's
next couple
calling
weeks.
me. When Mark calls me, I answer. So you guys keep this going. I'll be right back.
Okay,
cool.
That's fine. And then seeing today that he's on a line with Kivi Ranta and Chris Wagner. I guess what are you reading into it? What's going on with Miles Wood? What's his deal? And all I've really seen from him in the preseason games is that very unhinged north-south, let me put a body on somebody, and not necessarily productive play out of him. So where is he at? How long do we expect for him to kind of figure things out?
It's not like an entirely different version of Miles Wood came to camp too. It just lacked any more refinement. You would think maybe with a year under his belt, the version of him would be perhaps more organized chaos within that Roaring 20s line. I think what's happened here is better answered to in part by Bednar's answer to being patient in getting Casey Mittelstadt in a game, because I've been curious why he hasn't wanted a sooner look at who Casey Mittelstadt could possibly be playing with. And Bednar's answer was he wasn't sure if some of this wealth of forward options that he had, if any of them were going to pan out. And so that was going to leave him with an internal option that would be elevated, like a Ross Colton or an LOC. And so I think that with some uncertainty around what that means, those have been the players that would be due for that type of a promotion. Whereas I do feel Miles Wood has not taken that next step and just kind of integrating into the way that the Avs like to play, which is a very rigid structure. And so they wanted him for his chaos, but there also needed to be, I think, some adaptation. And I think that's what they're looking for in him right now, is how can he hone that in? Because it has been a little bit unbridled chaos. And I think they just want, to hear Bednar say the words too in talking about how this guy is regular season ready. This guy is game ready. He said that about Casey Mittelstadt. That's why he isn't needed to see him in a game specifically. To more or less call out Miles Wood in that way too, I worry if it's just also a little bit of physical readiness too in engagement in what he's showing there, especially for a player who does play very north-south with using his speed. Maybe he's just held back a little too much for Jared Bednar's liking. And so I think with all of those things put together, it's not just about Miles Wood showing not his best in preseason and camp. I think there are other things at play, but I do think that's a part of it too.
I'm starting to wonder if the way that Miles Wood plays is just too chaotic for this system. Because I think about what you were mentioning there, JJ, about what Jared was saying yesterday. And then I go back to last year when Devon Taves was calling people out for thinking they're playing well, but they're not bought into the system and they're kidding themselves. I think a lot of people kind of disseminated that down to a couple of the new guys. I think by the end of the season, I thought Miles Wood had found a nice groove. But like now with the way that he's come back here in training camp, and again, not that I think he's been like bad in the games we've seen him in and stuff like that, but it's chaos.
It seems like he's regressed into the player he was when he first got here,
Yep.
right? We talked to Jonathan Drouin, we
on.
talked to Ross Colton, we talked to Casey Mittelstadt. How much more comfortable are you now that you've got a year under your belt? You can keep your momentum forward in this system. They all have nothing but great things to say. We didn't really get to that question with Miles Wood during camp, but it doesn't feel like he would jump at, yeah, I'm feeling better. Another year under my belt. I'm ready to, take steps forwards. It seems like he just is the same guy that came in here and forgot everything that he worked on with Jared Bednar over the last year.
He's a wrecking ball.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think that's been something, I don't necessarily say it as in like a bad way.
No, yeah.
Like I think that's gotten him to this point in the NHL in his career. It earned him a 6-year deal with the Avs. But now I think the Avs are saying, hey, we want you to start refining this a little bit. We don't need you to be going full Luis Mendoza every shift. That's the kid from Mighty Ducks. You can skate super fast, but can't stop, if anybody doesn't know. Like, we don't need that every time you step on the ice. I saw a conference call in my email, and I was like, what did we just miss? It was nothing. And I think that's a good assessment, JJ, of like, it feels like he's maybe just gone back to the player was when he got here, and he's kind of having to go through this over again.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a contrast too with LOC signing his extension and it coming in at Miles Wood type money that puts a lot of pressure on Miles Wood to be what LOC is to the group. And with the holes on the penalty kill in particular, Miles Wood's responsibility has grown from the last year through now. There is more expectation from him. Last year it was a great year one, but there's more expected of him in year two. So to come in and not be at the same place he left off right when he finished last year, I think is also maybe to the disappointment or frustration of Bednar.
Yeah, you can also look at it from the other side of the coin as last year there was a lot of pressure on him to come in here, perform, learn the new system, do it right, where now he felt more like one of the guys, right? He felt like, okay, this is now my locker room. I can goof around a little bit more at training camp like we saw him do, and maybe let go a little bit of the details of what Jared Bednar expects of him. That's what's tough is in last night's game, you saw him really playing that role of I'm just going to bang bodies. I'm going to go behind the net and I'm going to wreck some people. The problem is this season, they need guys to jump in the penalty kill. They were hopeful Miles Wood could be one of those guys. But right now, it doesn't feel like he necessarily has the trust from the coaching staff. I know it's just preseason, but we saw him playing power play 2 yesterday. Is that a guy that you can really rely on to play these important roles when it's even 5-on-5? He seems to be struggling.
I'm to that point. Look, I think Miles Wood, in an ideal situation, is an extremely high-end fourth liner and a very good third liner. But to your point, JJ, like the Avs need more out of him this year. It's not like, oh, that'd be nice to get out of our bottom 6. It's like for at least half the year, you need a player that can at least look competent in your top 6. And again, I'm not saying that Miles Wood's play has been like so horrific that you can't put him out there, but like it's the system work. It's not just working hard, skating hard, banging bodies. Like there's system stuff that they don't just want him to do this year, absolutely need him to. So he just, I felt for him today because in his body language, I think he's feeling it. I think he's feeling everything we're talking about. And I wouldn't be surprised if he was feeling, almost kind of on the out of like, man, all these guys feel so comfortable this year. They're all jumping right back in. And again, based on Jared Bednar's comments, the fact that Miles Wood was in the lineup last night, there's clearly something they're not seeing from him. And I imagine that's weighing on him.
I think, too, to give Miles Wood a little bit of credit from one game into the next, because I think it is worth noting he got put into that next game because he looked a little ways off from being game ready compared to the others. That's the bottom line. But I felt there were improvements from one game into the next. The line that he played on specifically with Belmar and Poland made some of the fewest defensive mistakes in their own end. And so together they were pretty responsible. I won't credit single-handedly Miles Wood in that. I really liked what I saw from Poland. And of course, Belmar was sort of the steadying presence on that line. But I thought he improved from one game into the next. And I also felt his offensive touches, like just in a camp drill setting, have looked better. And that's not just the shootout move. He has been putting pucks in the back of the net in practices more than I saw before. I need to see it translate to a game before I start saying that was something that he specifically worked on this season. But if not for today's practice day and having this incident with Branstrom, I probably would have had a more positive opinion about Miles Wood today. I think it just was a culmination of the wrong sort of events. And so I still think this can go in the right direction. It just hasn't been a great start for him.
Well, and then just real quick, it's also the day from today, to your point about maybe feeling better. It's also just compounded, right?
Yeah.
So that the 2 games ago now, they lose the game. Jared Bednar pretty clearly calls out that Miles Wood didn't look game ready. They play again last night and just get absolutely shellacked. He was playing with, guys that are trying to make the team. And then to have that happen, because the Branstrom thing happened relatively early into practice, not like right at the start, but we weren't, we still had a long ways to go. And so I think it's 3 really bad days in a row for Miles Wood. And I don't just mean on the ice. I'm talking about like that's a tough day mentally today to be told, hey, of your line, you are the only one I think needs to get back into a game. I don't care who you are. That's a tough thing to,
100%. I'm with you. The mental side of it, I think, is taking a toll on him right now. Especially, you can even go further back during training camp, during those first 4 days, the Roaring 20s line, which Ross Colton deemed the Putts in 20s line, wasn't looking up to par. What happens next? Well, we hear Jared Bednar's considering throwing Ross Colton next to Casey Mittelstadt. Logan O'Connor's kind of running his own line. It almost feels like Miles Wood gets a demotion in skating with Kiviranta and Wagner. So you see one guy move up. You see one guy kind of stay right where he is, but you know how much they value Logan O'Connor. And then a Miles Wood almost getting a demotion at this point. the upside is, there's potential there. There's a ton of potential there. One of the 3 fastest skaters on the team.
Mm-hmm.
So that they can figure it out. It's not a lost cause by any means, but clock's ticking. The regular season's right around the corner. He's got to figure it out like very soon.
And this is the kind of stuff too, like for a championship team, you want to see players pull themselves out of this. And I almost even look at it as like, that I think the Avs do look at it as, yeah, we're demoting you. What are you going to do about it? Kind of, that kind of an attitude where it's not like we're not parking you on the 4th. Like, we're not going to send you to the A.
Right.
But like, is this going to get you going? All right. Your boys got the night off. You're in tonight. What are you going to do to make sure that you get the next night off for preseason? And like I said, I feel for Miles Wood, the human, because it seems like it's just all folded in on him quickly.
I think to the way the year started for Jonathan Drouin last year, and how if you put in the work, the opportunity to get to where you would like to be is still there. It's still there for Miles Wood. I do think it's a little bit of a demotion, because I also think LOC on that line with a Kovalenko who is being billed as this top 6 player, that is a promotion. It kind of feels like a third line just in the scheme of things, but I don't know what the lines actually look like when this is all said and done. I do feel for Colton and LOC, these are clear-cut promotions. Whereas a player like Wood being moved to where he was, I think speaks volumes about where he needs to get to right now. I also think it's a reward for Parker Kelly, who Jared Bednar mentioned by name as someone that he liked. No, I have to give Parker Kelly that shout out. Like, that is a reward. He's doing the right thing because he gets rewarded then with the Kovalenko LOC line.
What's funny is Parker Kelly actually had a radio hit on XM today with Marty Biron and Steve Koulias. And I'm thinking, like, the Avalanche are the ones in control of that. Sirius XM reaches out to the Avalanche and say, hey, we want a player today. And they gave him Parker Kelly. I don't think that's something they do for somebody they're planning on just waiving in the next couple days. I could be wrong, but I thought there was something of note there.
We've just seen stuff like that too many times. Where it's like, wow, they must think really highly of him. Cut, gone. Maybe.
I still don't know, because Kiviranta has some history with the group now with this last year under his belt, and he's also in this Wagner, Miles Wood conversation. So I don't know in the scheme of things where Parker Kelly is. Just really benefits him that he plays center.
Here's my honest, I said this today in the media room. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not trying to be funny. I'm not trying to pick on Parker Kelly. He scored a goal. I believe it was in Dallas off a really nice Kovalenko play.
Yep, that was in Dallas.
If that wasn't on the box sheet, I wouldn't even have known that Parker Kelly has played a game yet. In game settings, and again, I'm asking genuinely because I don't catch everything. Has there been anything for either of you that Parker Kelly's done? You go, whoa, who's that? Parker Kelly? I haven't noticed him.
I'll say no. That's why it was shocking to me to see that was the guy going on to Sirius XM for a radio hit today. So, yeah, I'm with you. I don't think he's done anything to really stand out.
I'm thinking about, too, the kind of hodgepodge of guys on the bottom of the lines for today. Ivan, Belmar, and Tynan, all centers. That is allowed. I'm not going to deny it, but it also kind of makes me wonder if Parker Kelly's spot there in the LOC Kovalenko line isn't guaranteed, and they're all still kind of auditioning for that same role.
Yeah.
I could see Parker Kelly being a kind of a surprise guy to make it on opening night if they don't keep Belmar. You've got some holes to fill. Lehkonen was out there again today in a red jersey. So you've got some holes to fill at the very beginning of the season, but I think they're going to go away pretty quickly. And yeah, I think Parker Kelly to me is a great call-up guy. First call-up, second call-up. If they put him on the roster, it makes no difference to me. I'm not going to think that was like a terrible move or anything. I haven't noticed Parker Kelly one time practice, training camp, or a game.
Yeah. I mean, they're in a nice spot where a lot of the bodies that they're going to be getting back here throughout the next couple months are crucial players. And to put a bow on the Miles Wood conversation, I think once Landy gets back in the lineup, I think that obviously bumps Miles Wood down another notch. So he's really got, I don't know, kind of a short leash here.
And even Lehkonen was skated with the main group today for a large portion of practice. Miles Wood laid Eric Branstrom out, and they did some battle drills, and they were like, yeah, that's probably good for Lehkonen for today. But like he's getting close. So that's one more spot. And I mean, right now, Nate, Mittelstadt, Colton, that's what you're going for. And that's why I'm saying if they choose to release Bellemare from the PTO, I think Parker Kelly makes the opening night roster. If they sign him, to me, that's Parker Kelly's spot.
You guys got a little bit into Nikolai Kovalenko playing last night with Nathan MacKinnon and Mikko Rantanen, getting some power play time, some hard, solid minutes. What'd you guys think of his game? How is he coming along here with this Avs group?
I thought he was fantastic last night. For me, he punched his ticket onto the roster, not just because we did last night, but because he had the game that he had last night, playing with not just legitimate NHLers, not just top 6 players, truly elite, top of the league talent. I thought he looked outstanding.
Jared Bednar isn't very forthcoming. So for him to say that this is a guy vying for a spot in the top 6 specifically makes me feel he is assured an NHL job. He's just now deciding in his play which one that's going to be.
Well, and he was a name that we all talked about first couple days of camp. Looked really good, looked sharp. Right before that first preseason game, we talked to Jared Bednar. Jared Bednar said that he's been fantastic. He stood out in those first couple preseason games as a guy that was a difference maker. When they went to Dallas, granted, it was hard to watch that game if you weren't there. But like he was just an energizer bunny out there. Like he was everywhere, making plays, multiple points, looked really good. Continues to have good days in camp. And then, like I said, gets a chance to skate with elite, top of the league, top 2 player in the NHL. Didn't look out of place. Pulled a between the legs move on the power play in front of the net.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't score, but went for it.
Yeah, it was nice.
I thought it was smooth.
Yeah.
And we talked to him after the game, and he seemed frustrated at himself that they lost and could have been better. And like, to me, his mindset is right, and everything we've seen on the ice from the open of training camp through to last night, I think he's been the brightest spot of camp in terms of guys who we were watching for. I think he's been great, and I think his NHL job should be locked up.
The way Bednar talked about, too, to play in the top 6, you have to be more than just a skill guy, particularly in the role that he's looking to fill, like a Lehkonen or a Nichushkin. And so what I've liked about Kovalenko is his work ethic, too. He's heavy on the forecheck and working hard to retrieve pucks and unafraid to play behind the goal line. And so he has looked good in those battles, too. He's been unafraid of them. But to that skill end, he hasn't looked out of place playing with talent like Rantanen and MacKinnon. He can anticipate what they're doing and settle those passes without any trouble. And so I've liked how he's able to match the skill without trying to get too cute with it himself. I think that's where Bednar had worry around him is, will he be a liability in any way? And he hasn't. And so I think that is what has also solidified his role in this lineup. And I asked Logan O'Connor about the familiarity aspect just in him even being around the team and getting in some playoff games, because today, he's out there playing with OC and Parker Kelly, and Logan's talking a lot to Parker Kelly, but he doesn't need to talk to Kovalenko. Kovalenko gets it. Like, LOC had to kind of tap Parker Kelly and give him some feedback after something when he lost the puck on one of the drills. And OC was giving him some insight on how to avoid that in the future. Kovalenko didn't require that kind of hands-on teaching. And I think that also just cements that he really did pick up a lot from his brief time with the Avs last year that I think makes him fit in so well right now.
Well, he also discussed with us how he played a similar style last year. Right? So
Locomotive.
it kind of translates a little bit. I love the idea of him playing with finishers like MacKinnon and Rantanen because he's such a playmaker. I think he'd have a really good fit there. Nathan MacKinnon compared him to Lehkonen, saying they have a lot of the same skill sets. Do you see that as well? I kind of see Kovalenko as a touch of Lehkonen, but has more skill. I don't want to say higher IQ because Lehkonen's got quite the IQ, but a little more of an offensive, I guess, IQ.
Dude, Lehkonen's such an interesting player because he's not that you're saying, but like he's so much better than people realize. Like Lehkonen's so much more talented and smart and stuff like that. But I can see why Nate said that. Again, I need to sit with it for a little bit more to really figure out where I draw like the hard parallels and where I think they're different and stuff. But I can see why he said that because he's cut from that same Lehkonen, Nichushkin, even Logan O'Connor type cloth where they just don't stop. They are relentless, but they aren't your traditional. I feel like I'm so low. I feel like I look really little.
Sit up straight.
Well, I
say it with your chest.
So, anyways, no, but like just that like relentless, hardworking, grinding type style, but also have a nose for the net. I feel like for so long in the NHL, you had to you had to be a grinder or a skill player. You were a grinder, a fighter, a skill player. And now I feel like you have guys like Nichushkin, Lehkonen, and I feel like Kovalenko can fit that mold where you're a skilled grinder, and you can generate some offense, but that is not the only way that you get involved. And so I can see why he said that.
I think the difference is he hasn't had the safe drilled into his game, and so there is still some looseness to it that I think allows him to take some risks, and that's where you see sometimes mistakes gets made. But I also really like to see a player not lose some of that, and I think if Kovalenko can hold on to it and just fine-tune it in a responsible way, it'll really benefit him as a playmaking winger in the Avs top six.
No, I like it. I think with the higher up he plays, the more his skill set's going to shine. If he's playing against other third, fourth liners, that's going to be more of a grind for him. Whereas if he's on top lines playing against other top lines, he can bring that grinding aspect, but that's when his skill and his, like I said, his offensive hockey IQ is really going to thrive.
Well, and I just wonder, as this group gets back healthy, I don't know, is he a better fit next to Colton and OC? Because of the way he plays and a little bit more of an offensive edge. Again, I don't know. Maybe that line clicks back together really well and really starts going. But
personally, I'd love to see Landy there. I think Landy, Colton, OC would be a pretty sick third line.
Interesting.
That's where you slide Miles Wood to a fourth line role. And yeah, maybe you keep Kovalenko up there with Mittelstadt.
Oh.
Because a Rantanen, Lehkonen, MacKinnon line, I mean, there's so many things. There's so many possibilities. We can go on for hours on.
The other thing, again, too, that we talked about it in the last show, and I heard something else today. They're expecting Nichushkin back. So, like, it's not just Landy. It's not just Lehkonen. Like, you're getting a full line of dudes back. Because, so in the example you're laying out, like, you're actually probably looking at a fourth line of Wood, Belmar and Kovalenko, and you've got Drouin, MacKinnon, whoever, Lehkonen, Val, Mittelstadt, Rantanen, Landeskog, Colton, O'Connor, and then so like that's the goal, is to get to that, because who dog it?
Drouin was kind of the guy I was leaving out in my scenario.
Wow.
I didn't mean to. It was an accident.
All right. You're forgiven.
How about the D group? That's something we've all been watching so closely since camp began. Did we learn anything about the defensive group in last night's game?
This feels poorly timed.
Branstrom
had a really rough game.
Yeah, he did.
There's a specific shift that is very rough, but also the whole of the game was bad for the entire back end, just to be clear. But he came out among the worst in scoring chances against.
I don't know if you had the chance to see my rundown, but I actually deemed it Branstrom's shift from hell. Now we're in spooky season.
Dude, Branstrom's spooky shift. I mean, it was terrible. It was terrible. Lost the puck in his feet, which I feel for. It's always a bad feeling.
Big save from Georgiev.
Huge save from Georgiev. Bails Branstrom out. Branstrom gets back. Okay, all right. We recovered it. Here you go. Right in the slot. Just take it. And then
extra pepperonis.
Right. And then just sells out, sliding on a guy that was not loaded up to shoot. Completely takes himself out of the play. Can't get back in support. It was bad. It was not a good game for Branstrom, and it was a terrible shift. And then to compound that with what happens today, you hope he's okay. But truthfully, right before that shift, Meghan and I were talking about how bad Shillington had looked. Again, just continuing to have that conversation of he needs to do something to stand out. He needs to do something to have a positive, leave a positive taste in somebody's mouth. And then Branstrom goes and does that. And I was like, well, all right, that just made it a little bit easier for Shillington. But yeah, I don't know. It's I don't think you have seen anywhere close to what you were hoping for out of Shillington and Branstrom. They look like two reclamation projects right now.
I'm trying to counter this.
I was going to say, I can tell you're trying to find something nice to say.
Well, is there something we're missing? Because I think that the way Bednar has spoken about it is like Malinsky's come out as a clear front runner. Mm-hmm. And then everyone else he seems okay with. And I feel like Bednar's the kind of guy you can read between the lines. We can suss out that he wasn't really pleased with Miles Wood. I'm not getting the sense that he's really feeling that down on the new guys. Other than, the first time I asked if there were any standouts on the back end generally after the first game, and he could barely give an answer. That was when I first noted he was not very impressed by anyone.
But to your point, he still didn't say anything negative. He still tried really hard to say they played well, Shillington played well, and never really dug into any negativity.
No, and he is a positive affirmation coach. I know that he also is a tough guy. He really is. But you hear him out there on the ice, the way that he talks to his players, and he is the first to try and lift a guy up when he's liked something that they've done. So I think that it's hard to read what Bednar's read on it has been. And I'm curious, am I just overly critical of what I've seen so far? Also, for what it's worth, I've liked Calvin DeHaan for what he is. Of the really rough showings of the last game, I thought he made the fewest mistakes of anyone. Just wanted to put that out there, that's also kind of separated. It's just the Shillington Branstrom conversation that I can't tell if I'm looking at this all wrong.
No, I think that's a fair assessment, especially DeHaan does kind of present that mistakeless, very safe, not going to do anything to get noticed one way or another type of style.
Again, I think the part where unfortunately, I don't think you're missing anything is I think we as media, people on Twitter, things like that, like the Avs brought those two guys in, and I think there was this kind of optimism of, oh, they must see something in them. These guys are going to come here and just show out. And I think maybe everyone forgot a little bit that Branstrom was fully brought in on a show me contract. Show us you belong in the NHL. Oliver Shillington, when did they sign him? What, August 20th? That was a guy who sat out there for a long time after Calgary decided they weren't bringing him back. These were both, with all due respect, flawed players. And I think we're seeing them work through these flaws. And I think it's maybe been disappointing that we haven't seen one of them show up and boom, there's the pop. That's what they thought they were getting. Shillington, I think, has been chasing camp since it started because of circumstances that were out of his control.
Mm-hmm.
And he's never fully caught up. I actually think today there was one 5-on-5 drill where he was paired with Kale, where I thought he looked the best that I've seen him so far. He made a couple of really good decisions out high, walking the blue line, and was able to like really protect the puck well on one where it looked like he was going to lose it. Branstrom, I actually feel like he's kind of gone the opposite direction, where he started camp really strong, and I feel like he's had progressively worse and worse days leading up to that shift last night, where it all just like, and that was the worst thing we've seen you do so far.
I think maybe anyone do so far.
Yeah, it was that rough of a shift, and so to me, to Megan's point of reading between the lines, that was how I took the statement of we might keep 8. Was I haven't seen enough to whittle it down past that. And I think at bare minimum, they're going to carry 7, with DeHaan likely being the true 7 throughout the season, just with some load management, some injuries that you can anticipate a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But that was what I read between the lines on we might keep 8 was these guys haven't done anything. The guys we're talking about haven't done anything to separate themselves from each other.
Wish we could cut them both.
No. Well, even DeHaan had a very similar turnover on the Duchesne goal in Dallas on the road. So it's like no one has not made any mistakes at all. There have been some pretty glaring errors from everybody, but there have been fewer errors from some people.
And I think that's the part where, it's like if you even just go back and listen to the way that Jared says we might keep 8, he almost even kind of says it like, I don't know, maybe I'll keep 8, and we'll just keep trying this till someone does something.
It's kind of like him saying that he wished there were more forward options too. I think he's sitting here like, yeah, to all of you, it seems like I have this wealth of options. I don't know if he's feeling the wealth right now.
We pointed it out in our last conversation, how nobody's really grabbed that role by the horns, right? Nobody's really stood out. Kovalenko has, but even he feels like there's another layer to him. There's another level he can bring. Maybe he's starting to bring it skating next to more potent forwards, but you heard it here first. I think Jared Bednar was just using our analysis like he tends to do.
Actually, I've thought about this. Bednar, if you're listening, can you tell us what's going on with the hair? I have no issues with it personally. I just want to know.
Fire subliminal message. Him and Mikko. I wonder if they talked.
Yeah. No summer cut.
Just like
we're trying something different
this year.
Oh, we talked to Mikko about it. Because usually he does the buzz cut and then lets it ride all year long. That's what I was looking for confirmation for. Because you and I had that conversation. You're like, I think he just buzzes it and lets it go the whole year. So I straight up asked him, Mikko, it seems like you just buzz your hair at the beginning and let it ride. And he's like, that's exactly what I do. I'm going for something different this year, though.
Interesting.
So we'll see what kind of hairstyles Mikko Rantanen comes out.
Mohawk.
But yeah, I unfortunately, Megan, I don't think there's anything we're missing. I just think that guys haven't jumped up and grabbed opportunities the way that we maybe thought they would with opportunities up for grabs.
Well, I think it builds more excitement and more hype around Super Sam Malinsky,
who, by comparison, came from college, got American League experience, and then his NHL debut, also a player who made mistakes, but eliminated them. And very quickly, like every game, he would just make fewer and fewer mistakes. And you could see the fit that was as advertised. Like, oh, this is a player who likes to activate, uses speed, move the puck. He was doing those things. You saw his strengths. Whereas if these guys who've had NHL games under their belt on other teams, it looks like they're very new.
It does. Like he Sam Malinsky has like flat out looked like the better, more mature player.
Yep. And
again, like as much as that is a vote of confidence for Sam Malinsky, I'd be willing to bet even the Avs didn't expect it to shake out like this.
Yep. So I think if there's two things you could take away from this episode is that the Malinsky hype is real and the Kovalenko hype is real. I think it's time to start getting excited about those two guys because it feels like they're the ones running away with these position battles.
Yeah.
I'm still hype on the future of some players who have been reassigned. It's not just Sean Behrens, but I liked his camp a lot. He's a player that I felt grew within the short time of camp and just seemed to be absorbing so much information and making little changes in his game. I am so excited about his future, and I really have liked Jason Polin and Matt Steinberg's camp as well. I don't think they should hang their head over reassignment either. And Jared Bednar shouted out Steinberg by name and saying that he reached a new gear, and if he can add even more from this point, he's already in the call-up conversation.
I'm with Meghan on Barons. I think he's grown a lot. He's going to be a great trade piece around the deadline. I'm just kidding. I just wanted to say, I know.
See, I was going to say the opposite. I was going to say, I guarantee that we see Sean Barons in an Avs uniform at some point, not saying this season, but he does make that leap.
No, I just
he gets traded.
I just want to be clear. I'm totally joking about that, because I do, all jokes aside, I see him as someone that they might be looking at as a Sam Malinsky-esque of like, can we build this guy into a full-time NHLer within the next season or two? Except it'd be even more exciting because as a guy that you drafted, you developed, you kept an eye on, you encouraged him to stay at DU when he needed that development. Like I said, all jokes aside, I'm with you, Meghan. I think that's an exciting player. We got a super chat up there. Can we make sure we get that up? There it is. Super sticker. We can't see the stickers on this side.
Chloe just.
Yeah, we can't hear Chloe.
Oh,
Chloe, stand up behind the window and use sign language to describe it.
It's like charades.
It's a car.
It's a middle finger.
I'm not,
okay.
Yeah, that was inappropriate.
Whoa.
Slow back
I thought
there.
it was great. Good answer, Chloe.
But big shout out. Thank you so much. Always appreciate the love.
Sin City SC.
Soccer club?
I don't know.
You sounded like you knew what it was.
Yeah, that was.
No, I was just reading.
Sin City SC.
You and I both looked at him like.
No, I was just reading the name.
But yeah. Thanks, Sin City SC.
Yeah. Well, thank you to everybody who chimed in. And thank you to everybody for watching us. I'm amazed people like us.
I'm not. We're very likable people, JJ. Well, I'm not. You guys are.
I was thinking about something entirely different. I had a sour look on my face, but I wasn't reacting to that. I was thinking about how some of the forwards who have been reassigned that are waiver exempt, I think aren't totally out of this conversation too. They just can go to Loveland pretty easily. Urianella. I'm not bringing him back into this. I just, he was one, but Polin and Steinberg being in there, I also feel is why they got moved, is because there's flexibility there that doesn't exist for some of these other players we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Is like Branstrom, I know Shillington would, but would Branstrom have to go through waivers?
I'm almost positive.
Yeah.
I'm pretty positive.
Of the guys left, I don't think there's very many waiver exempt, right? In terms of guys that are on the bubble.
No, it's true. Like Richie, good for him.
Yeah.
I think Ivan as well. So good for him.
Yep.
Like that's a huge testament to the camps that those two have both had.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think now. But yeah, I think those two might be.
Extended conversation between Bednar and Richie today. They stopped the 5-on-5 and they talked for 60, 90 seconds, dialogue back and forth. So that was good to see.
It is good to see. I know there's a lot of criticism about Avs and development, but he really does work one-on-one with all of his players. I remember seeing this with Sampo Ranta and Ben Myers back in the day. So even though things didn't work out with those two, it wasn't because Bednar checked out and said, "This isn't a development league. You're on your own, kid."
I think I'm good for today.
Yeah, I think so too.
Oh yeah, we have dinner.
We have dinner. Magnets. Okay, so here's what you're gonna do. You have to be following the Gorilla Sports Off Ice account on Twitter. And it has an Instagram, right, Chloe?
Yep,
it does. Instagram and Twitter, and then DM the Twitter page for Gorilla Sports Off Ice at GS_off_ice. DM that you want a magnet, your name, and then where we can send it. We've got 100 that we're going to send out through the mail. And then we have a few more that we're going to give out in person in a couple different areas here over the next week or so. But so starting right now, make sure you're following Gorilla Sports Off Ice on both Instagram and Twitter. and then send a DM to the Twitter page, and we'll get those mailed out to you here in the next few days. It's a little bit involved on this side. We're going to lean on JJ to show us how to do this most efficiently.
AKA JJ's got to do it all.
Well, I'm going to help
No,
you,
that's
but
fine,
I don't
it's
have the
fine.
machine. You have the machine that'll make these addresses. But
Computer?
you said you had a print. You said you had a special printer.
No. It's just a template is what I have.
Oh, okay. Well, that's totally
The special machine.
I thought you made it sound like it was like, yep, we load it up, we press one button, and it all prints out all these labels. Anyways, so get on that right now. First come, first serve, first 100 people. We'll get you a schedule magnet for this year.
And yes, we can send them international. So if you're in Canada or elsewhere, don't be afraid.
Yes. So we'll get on that as soon as we hear from you guys.
Cool. Well, thanks for hanging out with us. We'll be back
I love
Friday
you.
to break down all things relevant.
Yes, we've got apparel in.
I try to wrap up the show,
Well,
and he just
I read
keeps
a
going.
comment. I'm sorry.
Just
I
when
read a
you're
comment.
ready, you wrap it up.
Ah! Yeah, we've got merch coming. I just had someone else ask me about hats today. We got merch coming. I technically think there is a store out there that we haven't like fully activated.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I think there is technically a store created that's.
Do we have any flat
Ready.
bills for Bedsy?
Oh, we should get Bedsy a flat bill. See if he'll take one. All right, that's Megan. That's the host, JJ, who I keep interrupting. So I'm hijacking this ending. Chloe behind the glass, running the board. I'm Jesse Montano. Thanks so much for hanging out. We'll talk to you guys on Friday. Bye.